Bryan Kohberger is behind bars for life, but he's hoping to change that. Does he have a shot?
Boy, does he have an uphill climb. It would be like me trying to climb Mount Everest the first time without ropes and oxygen.
And guess what? Kohberger has people rallying behind him, and they're sending him cash. I'll tell you the name of his biggest benefactor. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Bryan Kohberger is serving 4 life sentences, and you might think after standing up in open court and raising his right hand and swearing to tell the truth and admitting that he murdered 4 University of Idaho students that he would go to prison and you'd never hear from him again. That was the hope of the families of Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. But that's not what's happening. Bryan Kohberger has made it clear that he's not going away, at least not quietly. Many people across the country believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty. He said that he was guilty. But now Kohberger, more than a year after he was sentenced to 4 life terms plus 10 years for burglary, has filed a petition for post-conviction relief with the Ada County courts. Kohberger says he was coerced into confessing and false promises were made to him by his legal team. He claims he wasn't told about exculpatory evidence. A claim has come to light that Ethan Chapin had unknown hairs in his hand, but whether that material was actually hair is in dispute. Kohberger says that his lawyers told him he would most certainly get the death penalty and that the conditions on death row were poor. Kohberger wrote, "A gross misrepresentation of and promises regarding what a life sentence would immediately afford petitioner and a gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate story of counsel's horrific experience touring an actual 8x8 death row cell, all communicated to petitioner and his family, allegedly by IDOC through counsel, thus constituting threats and promises made to induce a plea agreement." Bryan Kohberger arrived at Idaho's maximum security institution on the same day he was sentenced, July 23rd, 2025. He's been there ever since. He's inmate number 163214. He spends his days 23 hours a day in his cell alone. He's filed grievances claiming fellow inmates are harassing him. And since he arrived, he's had a number of people sending him money. His biggest contributor, his mother, Maryann Kohberger. Kohberger has asked to proceed with his post-conviction petition on a partial payment plan. He attached his financial records from prison to the petition. Those records show 6 people deposited money into his Keefe commissary account within a week of him arriving at prison. Kohberger's mother made the largest deposit, $300. In fact, Kohberger's mom has deposited money consistently. During his first month in prison, she deposited $700 into his account. Since his incarceration, Bryan Kohberger's mother has deposited more than $9,200 into his commissary account. Now, is that a lot of money? It sure sounds like it to me, but we'll get to more on that shortly. The rest of the deposits came from his supporters. The total deposited into Bryan Kohberger's account over the last year, $10,812. The expenses totaled $10,635.10. His balance earlier this month was $177.03. Now, that may not include the 20% the state takes for restitution for the victims. So what can Kohberger buy? The prison website states residents housed in Idaho Department of Correction prisons and community work centers may purchase supplemental hygiene products, food, electronics, and clothing through the prison commissary. Commissary goods are provided through a contract with Keefe Commissary Network. Each facility has the ability to customize their commissary menu to meet the needs of their custody level. Residents may order products weekly using their accounts. Orders are delivered weekly in each facility. So you might be asking yourself, what does Keefe Commissary offer? Which products? The Keefe Group's website shows it offers a number of products, including skin and hair care products, vitamins, deodorants, toothpaste, and supplements. There are clothing options too, such as jeans, shirts, shorts, sweats, underwear, shoes, and boots. And then televisions, typewriters, CD players, portable radios, headphones, and fans. Snacks are also available. So to dig into these records about Bryan Kohberger's prison finances, I want to bring in Dr. Dwayne Hendricks. He is a former federal prison warden, so he can look at this stuff with me and really break it down for us. Dr. Hendricks, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Angenette. Always be good to be with you.
Yeah, you too. Let's talk a little bit about this. I was shocked when I saw the amount of money that has been deposited into Bryan Kohberger's commissary account since his incarceration. It's over $10,000 now, and that's the first year. And then he's spent most of it. I mean, he's only got $177 left, according to the records we're seeing. Is that amount of money? Over $10,000. Is that a lot of money to be deposited into one of these accounts within 1 year?
Yes and no. And again, it depends on the inmate, their financial situation prior to their incarceration, and also the family and friends and those supporters who are behind the individual that is behind the fence. So I can tell you the average in the federal system, the average amount of money the inmates may have would be less than $500 at any given time. And that would even include the amount of money that they would make working at the facility. And most inmates probably make, 30, 40 cents an hour, depending on the type of work that they're doing. So the $10,000 deposit for this particular inmate is pretty high because typically, like I said, most inmates, carry about, $500 in their account at any given time. And the reason why inmates try not to have a lot of money in their account is because if they have high fines and restitution and court costs that they have to pay, because the more money you have in your account, the more money that's going to come back out to go towards those fines and restitution costs.
And the state does take a cut out of his commissary for restitution.
Yes. It should be around 20 to 25%, I believe, is their policy. And typically inmates will work out a payment plan with their counselor or case manager to ensure that those funds are coming out at any given time. Because I can tell you inmates would get really upset if they did get, let's just say, a high lump sum on their account. And then they would come back and say, hey, man, somebody sent me, $2,000. Why did y'all take, $200, $400 out of my account? It's because, hey, you're set on a payment plan. And when these funds come in, they come out.
So the math on 10,000, 20% of 10,000.
Right. $200. Yeah.
Yeah. $200. So, when we do that math, I would assume this 10,000 is not taking that into account.
Right. Exactly. And looking at the records, it doesn't exactly show, where he is right now with those court costs and fines that he has to pay. And additionally, I did see the petition where he's saying that he doesn't have the funds in order to pay because now he's only down $177 in his commissary account.
This doesn't even include whatever is being spent on phone calls and video visits too. So there may be even more money being donated towards that. And it's not just mom donating. It's not just mother. And I call her mother because that's how he had her saved in his phone, mother and father. They were the central figures in his life. But there are other people donating, contributing to his commissary.
Yeah. And because of the high profile nature of this case, and I know sometimes we find it a little difficult to believe that, especially someone who's been convicted of murdering 4 college students in a very heinous and violent way, that he would garner such attention that other people, other than people that his family and friends or close associates prior to this case, that would actually be contributing to his funds. That happens, obviously. And then, and I believe that the Idaho Department of Corrections also monitors who's providing funds in the individual inmates' accounts, because sometimes other inmates' families and friends will put money on other inmates' accounts when there's debts to be collected, whether it's gambling or some other extortion type of activities. So I'm sure they're monitoring who these people are. Are they just fans? Are they just giving him money, or are they giving other inmates money? Because they can use that intelligence to try to figure out, is there something nefarious related to these funds coming in to inmates, especially if they're funding other inmates' accounts in the facility.
And the last we knew, he was being kept in his cell 23 hours a day, because, there are people who probably want to harm him.
Right.
And so he gets like an hour, I think, out in the yard, each day if he wants it.
Right.
And then he has to be escorted to that area. So we don't know how much he's mingling with other inmates, if he's made any connections in there, or if he's just like he was in the Latah County Jail, hanging out on video calls with his mom all day.
It's probably a little bit of both, or a mixture of all those things, depending on how often, who's being moved to the cell block, who's on the sides of him, who's across the hall from him, because inmates do communicate. It's very interesting how they go about that. They also send things back and forth through the cells, and we call them fishing lines. They'll put a note on something, and then when staff aren't on the range, they'll slide it across the room, across the a range, and then the inmates, sometimes you come on the unit and you're like, oh, this guy's trying to fish something to this other guy, and you grab the line and you grab the note, or you grab whatever the communication they're trying to make. They talk through the vents. So I know that from all reporting that he was very a silent person, didn't really connect with others, and that. So it'd be interesting to see if he does or has been communicating with those other inmates on the range. And then when he's escorted, someone in maximum security, he wouldn't just be escorted by two people. It would usually take three people to take him to whatever area. If he has to shower, if the shower isn't in his cell, they'd have to take him there, or take him to a law library, or like you said, take him out to the recreation area, which is probably less than 10 or 15 yards away from the unit. He won't be going very far to do recreation, and it's more than likely in a large cage type situation where he can run and maybe do a little bit of calisthenics, but it wouldn't be a full recreation yard because you have multiple other inmates that also has to get their recreation time in as well.
Bryan Kohberger does have supporters, and I kind of wonder too if there are people sending money to mom, and then she's funneling this money to him as well. Apparently, there were GoFundMe pages and online organized fundraisers to give Bryan Kohberger money.
Yeah, and that's not out of the realm of possibility. They may be, doing some third party funding. A crowdfunding for him as he is trying to potentially get a trial and pull back his plea agreement that he had to plead guilty for those murders. I'm sure that he's going to have to pay some legal fees, and I'm sure that money is probably not going to go straight to his inmate account. I'm sure that funding will probably go through his family or someone closely associated to him, or whatever law firm he picks to represent him in his attempt to get a trial and pull back his plea agreement. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that that there's some crowdfunding going on through a third party through his parents. Because like if he didn't come from a family of means, then where is this funding coming from to just send out $10,000 for a year? I can tell you. Neither one of my parents would have given me $10,000 at the age of 31, 32, just because,
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see if, there are some sources out there that have some information related to where this funding is coming from.
Yeah, no doubt. I know there were some online efforts a while back And there's one account, I found one online fundraiser recently, but it has no contributions. So that's pretty interesting. He can buy a number of things, it looks like, from the Keefe commissary. There's seafood. That was shocking to me. I'm like, seafood? Like, you would think that would go bad. But he's a vegan. There's meat snacks, ready to eat meals, cookies and crackers, ramen soup, candy, cheese products. There's electronics that can be purchased, any number of items. So is that stuff pretty expensive in prison, and does it add up quickly?
It's very expensive in prison, and it does add up fast. And that's why, we're looking at the records here. I mean, he's spending upwards of over $100 every time he goes to the commissary. And, again, I'm sure we call it common fare for individuals who don't eat flesh in behind the prison walls or in jail facilities. So more than likely, he's probably on a common fare meal in terms of his intake if he has not changed his diet. But it's very difficult to buy things on the commissary that would follow a non-flesh diet, especially with ultra processed foods that's high in sugar and sodium. So it would be very interesting to see is the money he's spending in the commissary related to food or other items that he can purchase, in terms of watching movies or downloading music or different things of that nature, or is he spending the money to pay off other individuals on the unit to make sure that he stays safe while he's incarcerated there at the maximum security facility there in Idaho.
Dr. Hendricks, how common is this for somebody charged with a horrific crime who's pleaded guilty? He said he did it. Now he's saying he was coerced and made false promises and lied to. How common is this for then an inmate to come out of the woodwork and say, I want to take back my plea. I want to withdraw this. And now I want a trial. Is this common in your experience?
Very common. And I know he's not housed case or, the process of going through the judicial system. So I'm almost certain that even when he did this plea, he already had it in the back of his mind that at some point that he was going to try to file a petition. I can tell you, as someone who retired from federal service 3 years ago, I'm still dealing with different habeas petitions and issues from inmates from all various types of issues, whether it's related to their time, whether it's related to their pay, while they were working, whether it was related to, COVID issues, how we were operating our facilities during that time. So this is very common. And I'm sure the legal staff at the institution is fully aware of what he's trying to do, especially when he wants access to the law library or his legal materials. They just need to follow their processes and their procedures, because ultimately, this is, to me, is going to be more than just him getting a new trial, and pulling back. I also believe that he's trying to see if the staff there can make any mistakes so he can file habeas petitions against them in relation to this process, so he can ultimately be removed from that maximum security facility and or be placed in a prison outside of the state of Idaho so he can be closer to his family and friends in the state of Pennsylvania. So I think he has a bigger play here in terms of what his plans are.
It's so interesting you brought up the possibility of a habeas petition, because I've been saying that from the beginning, that I thought he would be filing a habeas petition at some point in time, and that this is not the last we had heard of him when he pleaded guilty. So is this all possibly laying the groundwork for that habeas petition? Because that's a different type of petition than just post-conviction relief.
Yes, he is looking for some sort of loophole to get his way out of that facility, either to a lesser security place there in Idaho, or possibly become a state border somewhere closer to his family. And again, we call them malingerers. He sounds like an inmate who malingers and constant fouling and constant having to make sure that the staff are doing their job, because ultimately, if he can find any issues with what they're doing, he's going to find a way to try to get himself out of that facility. And like I said again, to get closer to his family. And ultimately, he's looking for his freedom. But I think right now, I think he's more or less trying to lay the groundwork so that way he can get out of that J unit, the maximum security facility there in Idaho.
Well, we'll see how it unfolds. We're at step one, I think, right here with this petition for post-conviction relief. They've appointed a lawyer for him, or at least the judge has ordered that a lawyer be appointed. So we're going to see how this all unfolds. Thank you so much, Dr. Hendricks.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So let's turn now to David Singleton. He is an attorney who's done a lot of post-conviction relief work in the past, and he's also a professor of law at the University of the District of Columbia. So David, thank you so much for coming on.
Angenette, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So let's talk a little bit about Bryan Kohberger's petition for post-conviction relief. This is a guy who went into court and said he voluntarily and intelligently waived his right to a trial. He was agreeing to this. He did it. What are your thoughts on him now filing this motion?
Boy, does he have an uphill climb. It would be like me trying to climb Mount Everest the first time without ropes and oxygen. It's really going to be very difficult for him. And the reason why is before the judge accepted his plea, the judge went through what we call a plea colloquy. And that's where the judge asks a lot of questions to determine the voluntariness, intelligence of the plea. And basically, it's a way for the judge to bulletproof, if you will, the plea so that it is not going to be vulnerable to an argument later on that it was involuntary. So not only did the judge, first of all, put Mr. Kohberger under oath to answer these questions, but the judge went through a whole lot of questions like, are you satisfied with your lawyer? Are you satisfied with how they've advised you? The answers to those questions were yes. Has anybody forced you to plead guilty? The answer to that was no. Has anybody promised you anything other than what is in the plea agreement offered by the government? The answer was no. So the judge, in a very careful way, sort of took out the avenues for escape later on that from the plea agreement that Mr. Kohberger might want to try, like saying his lawyer was ineffective. He was unhappy with what his lawyer advised him, or that he's been made promises by the lawyer that now he's saying are not kept. So those sorts of questions are going to make it really, really hard for Mr. Kohberger to get his plea withdrawn.
He said that his attorneys, who he said were fantastic and great, I'm paraphrasing, with the colloquy, he basically said he was happy with their representation, all of everything you just went over. But he said that they basically coerced him, that they said, we went to death row. It's horrible. The firing squad's waiting for you. This is going to be a legal victory. Does he have anything, to hang his hat on there? Because he's basically saying he was coerced into lying, into falsely confessing. And so he's saying his attorneys were basically like, you're going to get the firing squad. You need to take this deal.
Well, first of all, I don't know what the lawyers are going to say in terms of how they phrased their advice, but lawyers do play a counseling role too. And part of that role is to advise the client of the potential consequences of the plea. And, certainly had Mr. Kohberger gone to trial and been convicted, it's very likely he was going to get the death penalty. It was capital charges. And in a high profile case like that, I would have been shocked had he not gotten the death penalty, had he been convicted after trial. And so I think it's appropriate for the lawyers. Again, I don't know what they said or how they phrased it, but to let him know what he's facing if he doesn't plead guilty. Now that doesn't make a plea involuntary. It's short of browbeating someone, you're just not going to get to a place where the court is going to say that's an involuntary plea, particularly when the judge asked, has anybody forced you to do this? And the answer was no.
Mhm. Right. One thing that is so interesting to me is the fact that I don't think this is a surprise to anybody who's watched this case closely. I mean, I'm not shocked by him doing this. I had a very good feeling he was going to do something like this. Does this put his plea agreement in jeopardy? Because as a part of that plea agreement, he waived all appeals. So could the state come back and say, you know what, buddy, you want a trial? Let's do it because you just violated the terms of the agreement.
I doubt very seriously that the state would do that. Now, again, I'm not the state of Idaho, but I think part of the rationale for the plea in the first place, and I realize that there was some dissent within the victims' families about this, but part of the reason for doing this is it spares at least some of the families the ordeal of a trial to have to relive
Mhm.
this. And so I think what we're going to see, and again, I could be wrong, but I think what we're going to see is the state say, No, Mr. Kohberger, you're wrong. This plea is not involuntary," and they're going to fight this plea withdrawal motion. That's what I would expect, but anything can happen. So I'll wait with you and watch.
Yes, we are waiting and watching. He's been appointed counsel, or at least Judge Hippler has signed an order saying, the public defender needs to appoint counsel for him. So if this thing lands on your desk, David Singleton, you've done many post conviction relief petitions in the past. How do you handle this?
Well, I think you handle it by first talking to your client and talking to Mr. Kohberger and figuring out, you know, what he's claiming was said in more specificity than what he wrote, and you then have a conversation with the lawyers. You do some investigation. You try and figure it out. I mean, if you're a lawyer who's going to be representing Mr. Kohberger, you got to do your damn best to bring
Mhm.
about what his goals are. Uh, that said, I think it's going to be a hard road for him, but whoever is appointed will have to do their best to investigate what his allegations are, and then try and help them if there's a basis.
I've covered cases where you worked to get people out of prison who were convicted and said they were wrongfully convicted and they were actually factually innocent. Have you ever had a case where a defendant entered into a plea agreement because they were so afraid that they were going to get the death penalty because the temperature was so high surrounding the case and emotions were high and there was fear, there was never going to be a fair trial? Have you ever had a case where a defendant pleaded guilty to avoid that and then won a post-conviction relief motion?
Yes, I actually had one in our old stomping grounds of Butler County,
Mm,
Ohio, and it wasn't a high-profile case in terms of national high profile, but within Butler County, it was high profile, and our client was led to believe that she was going to get the death penalty. The lawyer did a horrible job advising her, and
mm.
then years later, we filed a motion to withdraw her guilty plea after trial, which is much harder, by the way, than asking to withdraw your plea before sentencing. We had filed it. I'm sorry, I said but after trial. We moved to withdraw her guilty plea after her sentencing, based on ineffective assistance of counsel, because she was misled about the death penalty, which could have been sought, but it wasn't. And she was able to get some relief because of ineffective assistance of counsel. So it's not that it's impossible, it's just hard. And that was a hard fight in that case. And we were not dealing with the same magnitude of the charges that Mr. Kohberger faced.
Well, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I hope you'll come back and talk with us about it again. David Singleton, thank you so much.
Anytime, Angenette.
Judge Hippler, you remember him. He's ordered the public defender's office to appoint counsel, a lawyer for Bryan Kohberger in his post-conviction efforts. Remember, you can read the entire Bryan Kohberger case file and his post-conviction petition on our new app, Law&Crime Plus. Give it a look. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.